Hello everyone and welcome back to this 12th episode of Brilliance by Mikhail Tal. And today we are going to analyze a game played between Ubris. I don't think he was a grandmaster from Riga, but he was certainly a club player from Riga. And he's playing with the mighty and tactical beast Mikhail Tal that we have, the games of whom we have always seen such with such a interest and eagerness. So yeah, let's dive right into the game. Mikhail Tal is with the black pieces, and Ubris is with the white pieces. He has a nice opening completed. He has centralized one of his rooks. The bishop is still not developed, but there are some problems that white can face in future. And the main idea of rook f d1 played by Ubris is to pin the pawn, and he feels that okay, now this pawn is certainly going to vanish from the board. He's going to have a nice pawn trade on the d file, and he will be doing all fine. But little does he know that Tal has a hidden plan in this position. So Tal starts his plan with the move knight to e5, and he says, well, okay, if you want to pin my pawn, uh, you can still go ahead with it, but I'm going to attack the queen. And where do you move your queen? Of course, there is an option of capturing the pawn, but usually it's not considered to capture such free pawns when your opponent can have a nice fierce attack. So Ubris doesn't go for it. He plays queen to g3, and now Tal plays the move for which I've shortlisted this game. Uh, of course, this game was not initially in my shortlistings for episode 12, but one of our subscribers did insist me to include this game in this entire series of Brilliance with Mikhail Tal. So yeah, feel free to pause the video here and find the best move for Tal while I give you a couple of seconds. Yeah, for those who could do it, congratulations, you're now a nice certified sacrificer of your queen. And for those who want to enjoy the show, Tal plays captures on c3. And yeah, this is just a trademark Tal move. And as white, you don't have options. You have to take the queen. I mean, you have lost a piece. So rook captures on d6. You have rook captures on d6 by Tal. And now, what do? You have a checkmating threat on d1. And there's not a lot of options to prevent this checkmate. Of course, the queen cannot prevent. Both the squares are nicely covered by the knight, and that is when Tal started the entire variation with knight to e5. And you even can't move the bishop. The bishop is freeze because the bishop has no squares. All the squares are useless. So Ubris tries pawn to h3 here, and now Tal again, you know, patiently waits for his rook d1 check moment. He plays knight to e4, yet bringing another piece into attack, and of course he's harassing the white queen. Of course, you can't go with queen to h2 because now rook d1 check will be a nice little checkmate. The game is over because the king has only one escape square. So Ubris plays queen to h4 because he doesn't have a choice. All the squares are covered. The queen is almost trapped. And now Tal had certain options. Tal could go with g5, continuing with the attack. Of course, he's going to win the piece here, but Tal is interested in much more. He plays rook to d1 with the check. You have king to h2 by Ubris, and now again Tal has very much all options, g5 options ready. There is c2, which he of course plays in the game, and there was of course rook e8 trying to create some breathing space for the king. Tal goes for c2 here. He says, well, okay, now my threat is bishop a3. I'm going to put pressure on your c1 piece, and that's certainly going to be game over. And now Ubris plays knight to e2. He says, well, okay, before you apply pressure, I'm going to defend the bishop with my knight, and of course, I'm going to attack your knight on e4. And what is your take here, as black? And what do you do here? Of course, moving this knight back is certainly possible. Even knight d2 is possible as per the engine, but Tal plays absolute best here. And again, I can give you a couple of seconds to understand the move that Tal plays, and while I will have just some water. Yeah, for those who could found it, congratulations on finding the best move for Tal, and Tal plays it. He plays the move to d6, and what is this? I mean, what options do you have here? Of course, you can take the knight. That was the entire idea. But what did you dismiss here? Of course, if he takes the knight, then there's this nice little knight to f3 with the checkmate, and it's game over. Because this is a double check with the knight and the king, knight and the bishop, and the king cannot escape to the last rank because the rook nicely covers the last rank. So unfortunate to have a checkmated king along with the queen on in the center of the board. So of course, Hubris doesn't want to allow this. So he, after bishop d6, he doesn't play queen captures on e4, and certainly he goes for the best possible response for this. Of course, you can't play g3 because then again knight f3 check picks up the queen. You are pretty much losing the game. So f4 by Hubris, and now of course, what should you do as Tal? Tal finds the best move here, and I think that's the only move that is keeping with the pace of the attack. And he plays knight to d3, and every other move. I think knight g6 could also have been better, but knight d3 just uh, keeps in the spirit of the game, because now knight d3 threatens knight f2 followed with rook h1 checkmate. So that it's not a move that is silent, but it's a much poisonous move rather than it looks. So knight to d3 by Tal, and now comes knight to d4. I think, yeah, knight to d4 by Hubris. And he says, well, okay, I'm still trying to capture the c2 pawn. You can take my bishop, and Hubris is now ready to make the trade for the bishop versus the pawn. So for example, if Tal takes with the rook, simply rook captures, knight captures on c2. Still the position is better for Tal. I mean, you have almost two pieces and a rook for the queen. And certainly the pawns are, I think, white is a pawn up, but that doesn't matter. I mean, two pieces and a rook versus queen is certainly better for black here. But Tal even doesn't want to give a 1% chance to Hubris in this game. So again, Tal plays the best possible move here. Now there are quite good moves here after knight to d4. There is knight captures on c1, which is still better for Tal. There is rook c1, which is still better, but Tal chooses the absolute attacking approach. She plays the move pawn to g5, and this is not bad, but this is not as good as knight c1. Sorry, knight c1 here, as we discussed. So pawn to g5, you have queen to h6 by Hubris, and this is the first moment in the entire series of this Brilliant Cylindrical Tal where I start believing that Tal is a human, and he's a human from the past, because he too has the right to make some errors while he's attacking. So Tal makes the first error of the game here, and he plays the move g captures on f4, and which causes the game, which opens the possibility of the game ending in a draw, and we will analyze it how. But the best move for again Tal would have been rook to e8, guarding the e6 square. And why the e6 square is so much important for now? I mean, you will ask me, the e6 square is guarded almost twice. If you play rook e8, the e6 square is going to get guarded twice. So what is the need of guarding the e6 square? But we will get to it shortly. So g captures an f4 by Tal, and now you displays the best move. He plays knight to f5, and now you realize why this rook to e8 move was important, because now you're threatening this queen e7, queen g7 checkmate, and you can't play bishop to e5 stopping that, because then unfortunately you get knight e7 check, and the rook on e8 would have been much more useful on e8 to guard the e7 square. But now you are much unfortunate to get checkmated with queen captures on f8 yourself, and you don't have any ideas of making brilliances like f3 check. You don't get the opportunity to do so. So that is why rook to e8 would have been much more better. But Tal finds another way to tackle this too. He plays pawn to f3 with the check. He says, well, okay, you can take this bishop, but this bishop is poisoned. So what happens if you take it? If you take knight captures on d6, just f2 and f1 equals knight is the actual threat. Like there is much not much that white can do here. If you try something like bishop b2, just f1 is equal to knight check. You have nothing. I mean, king g1, just knight d2 with a check. You have to go to h2. The f2 square is covered twice. King to h2, and now just knight captures on b2. You have three knights on the board, and still the position is completely hopeless for white. I mean, uh, there is no defense against rook captures. This pawn is going to queen, and the king is, although it's open, there are not much of material left with white to launch a successful attack versus the black king. I mean, you don't have anything here. You can play knight to f5, but still knight f1 check, and now surprisingly you're one move away from checkmating. but after king g1, knight g3 check, you pick up this. You still can't take this because the queen appears on the board, and it's completely winning for black in every possible way. So yeah, coming back here at the point. So yeah, you just plays g3, finds this that knight d6 is not working. G3, and now Tal plays the only move keeping himself alive in the game. Bishop captures on g3 with a check. Of course, you can't block, you can't defend against queen g7, so you need to deflect the knight. You have knight captures on g3, and now f5 at all. So, well, that's the best way to continue the attack. And you can, of course, cannot capture the pawn. You have the rook guarding the pawn. So what do? You have knight h5 by Udris. Uh, again, going for the only threat possible, and now comes rook to f7. Now the rook defends the g7 square nicely, but still it's a draw. And how it's a draw? He just finds a way. He plays queen to e6, which is the perfect way of drawing because now the e8 square is accessible for the queen, and there is no way that Tal can ever win this game. He tries f2 here, of course. I think Tal plays f2, and now this is the dead draw. You have no option but to draw this game. There is queen e8 check, rook f8, queen e6 check, and you know, this is just game over. You cannot step here anyway because bishop b2 check. You again deflect the knight. You have to capture. Now the knight no longer guards the e5 square. Just queen e5 check. King here, queen e6 check. This is going to be a nice little check rally for the white queen. So this was the way to draw the game, of course, after f2. But now Udris makes the final blunder of the game, and he plays the move bishop to d2. And I think what you just felt is that, this is just something similar. He's trying to deflect this knight, but deflecting this knight is useless. I mean, uh, you know, now rook captures on d2 is what Tal played in the game. That is the best move possible. But apart from rook captures on d2, there is even f1 equal to knight check. So that's not as forcing as queen e8 check would have been. You have rook captures on d2 by Tal, and now comes queen to c8 with a check. You have rook to f8, now comes queen to c4 with a check, and now king to h8. And you see the problem. You can go to d4 with the check, but then now Tal has much more definite plan, which of course we will find out. You have rook to f1 by Udris, and now c1 equals queen by Tal. And yeah, this queen can be taken in two possible ways. Of course, queen c1 is not good because knight c1, black is up a whole lot of material. You don't want to play a position like this. And of course, you can't play rook to c1, otherwise just f1 equals queen. This is a nice little checkmate, and yeah, that is just game over for Udris here. And of course, coming back here after this, he played queen to d4 check, and now I will come back to the idea that Tal was thinking for. That is knight to f6 here. And of course, you can take with the knight, but the problem is now this knight has some discoveries, but the queen is not going to get a chance. Knight e1 attacking the queen, and although this is a nice tempting diagonal for the white queen, there is nothing that you can do. You have to get off the diagonal. You cannot stay in the diagonal with queen e5 because the knight f3 check, and the game is pretty much over. You lose the queen, you are down a lot of material, and you're losing the game. Yeah, that is why after this c1 equals queen, you just resign the game. There is no way for, I'll just come back to this position. There is no way for white to convert this game into a nice victory for himself. So again, a brilliant attacking stroke from Tal, right away from sacrificing the queen initially to putting the rook on d1, pinning the bishop for so long, uh, marching up with the knights in a much more aggressive way, pushing the pawn when needed, and this g5 push was the best. I mean, that is what I like. Just takes this and takes this. Sorry, f3 with the check, and that was the most epic part of the entire game. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this game. Do follow to our channel. Do subscribe to our channel for more such content. We are going to have this series of Brilliant Mikhail Tal. This is going to last much episodes. I think almost 20-25 episodes, which I've planned for now. If I get much more games, I can even extend episodes too. And for those who are who love tactics, do share this as much as possible. Do let all the new chess players, all the chess enthusiasts know how tactics work in chess, and let they also be part of the brilliancies by Mikhail Tal that we are all going to analyze together. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned. We are going to come back with the 13th episode of Brilliancies by Mikhail Tal very soon. Till then, have a nice day.